Right, as I normally do, I shall open the meeting with the first words of Volusval and say a few more words in Old Norse and light the candle. Jag speak allar helga kindir, meri och minni, mögu hen dalar. Helt kvöld och helig kvällsinnig, hel natt och näft. Jag reser mig ögonblick till saker sinning och givit sitt kondom seger. Hade azir alla avsinnig hälsjaren från utifrån. Malet mandet givet och en marken tvämmer att en centimeter. Brander av brand i brännungsbrunnen funnit väckes av fundamat att manligas att manligas en till dalska aftur. Flame is quickened by flame. A man from another man may become wiser, but from conceit may remain ignorant. Truth, like the sky, is above and beyond us all. Gods of our peoples and lands, may we spend this time together in friendship with you and with each other, and use it to the common good with profit and with pleasure. Music is speech without words, one might say, and the lives of all of us are a kind of music, a sequence of actions articulated in a diurnal rhythm underlain by the beat of a heart. Thus, devotional music, music addressed to the gods, has the potential to become an audible image of what one's life might be as it stands to the divine, and what it might be in conformity with the chords of a heavenly and yet earthly harmony. Sometimes one can hear a piece of music, devotional or not, and think, I wish my life were like that, in its determinate strength and simplicity. I've certainly had that experience myself. Jean-Paul Sartre, in the novel La Nausée, if I recall, it was over 30 years ago that I read it, says exactly the same thing about a piece of music heard in a cafe by a character who needs to stop thinking about what to be and just be what he is. In two directions, music can be effective. It can create a sympathetic space into which the seed of a sentiment can grow into a fully fledged emotion, or it can become the external expression of an energy welling up inside one, when even in listening, one can identify so closely with what one's listening to that it is as if one is both composing and performing it. It's a constant battle, I find, in holding Blutz to try to lead the words to a state of music whereby they transcend their being purely prosaic bearers of meaning. And I suppose, in a sense, that's one of the battles of life. But enough of me. Kevin, very good to see you. I invite you to let's hear your thoughts on this important subject, and you will have to unmute. Yeah, good.
Okay. Thank you, Stead, for inviting me to this event and all that. Giving me this grand opportunity to speak about this very important subject. As an introduction, my name is Kevin, also known as Cefin Beorn on the internet. I'm from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I'm a YouTuber behind the YouTube channel Leornende Eald Englisc. One can simply find it by typing in Learning Old English on YouTube. And primarily it's about learning Old English with the theme of Dharmic spirituality, also with the periphery goal of helping to revive devotion to the Anglo-Saxon gods or the Germanic gods, etc., etc. I'm an undergraduate student of linguistics. I'm a musician composer, have been making music since I was about 9 to 10 years old. I'm a follower of Sanatana Dharmi, which is Sanskrit for the eternal natural way or eternal natural law on the Vaishnava path. devotee of Lord Sriman Narayana. I'm not a guru, but I am a student of one, and his name is Shri Dharma Pravartika Acharya. Now, to get on to the topic at hand, why devotional music? Well, the thing is, you get people that get into Germanic paganism, Germanic spirituality, and they think, okay, well, I'm a pagan now, I'm a heathen now, what now, right? So a lot of people are sort of, because the thing is, the revival of Germanic paganism, if you really think about it, it's still in its infancy. So a lot of people who get into the stuff kind of don't know where to go, really. And this is where devotional music can help someone new to this stuff, can like understand the context and the relationship between a devotee, worshiper, if you will, and the deity in question. Like, what's the relationship between the two? And the context is that, from what I've learned, that it is a personal loving relationship to that of a father to a son, a mother to a daughter, a teacher and a student. We learn this from the Rig Veda, Mandala 1, Hymn 1, 9th verse. Be to us easy of approach, even as a father to a son, Agni, be with us for our weal. And the thing is, this has to be said because there are people who unfortunately inaccurately say that the gods are either explanations of nature, Jungian archetypes, and just energies, anything but a metaphysical personality. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, meta meaning beyond, and beyond physical. So we're talking about someone who is beyond our senses, because as human beings, we are limited of our senses. And to briefly describe this, to use an example from a Vedic text called the Upanishads. So if I were to have a glass of water, put salt in it, walk away for a bit, come back, I cannot see the salt, but I know it's there. Same thing for a deity. You cannot see a deity, but you know the deity is there. As for the personality part, well, if we as human beings have personalities, why would a deity lack? They would have personality. So that being the case, that devotional music allows to have us as human beings to have a connection with the divine. And what I've learned from my guru, again, Shri Dharma Pravartika Acharya, that from what I've learned, that the divine is everywhere, but our minds are not. This is why we need, among many things, all those things, music, to help us connect with the divine, to focus our mind and our thoughts towards a particular god or goddess or group of deities. So this begs the question: what should the nature of the music be? Well, if you really love someone dearly, well, ideally you want the music to sound nice, and nice in the context of uplifting, thoughtful epithets, descriptions. To give it a few examples of what I'm talking about, like as for descriptions, it'd be something like, "Oh, you are the one who does X." Or as for epithets, like, "Oh, strong one," "Oh, bright one," etc., etc. And so forth. And of course, all this rhetoric would be done through uplifting tunes and whatnot. Because the idea behind devotional music, is to please the deity in question, right? Because the idea is to strengthen one's connection to a particular divinity, right? And again, the context, as I mentioned earlier, is that of a father to a son, a mother to a daughter, a teacher and a student, right? So to give a small example of like what I've been saying here, I will will perform a small excerpt of one of my songs, and this is to the goddess Hulda. I will sing in Old English, and then I'll read out the translation afterwards. And here we go. Havastu, Hulda, Thulda de Orleva Sia Tothe, and Modo do the art, so thinum barnum, Hulda, Sia Tothe, and Modo do the art, so thinum barnum, Hulda, and so the translation here is that: "Hail, hail, Hulda, patient one, dear one, beloved one, victory to you. a mother, you who are to your children, holda, victory to you. A mother, you who are to your children, holda, victory to you. So here we have the epithets, we have the descriptions, we have the evocation of the name of the deity in question. Because if you love someone, you would want to address them by name, right? So, but to go further, so as an effect of devotional music towards the person performing or writing, or towards the person singing or chanting, is that there are positive things that come about with this. Like, for example, one okay, yes, one cultivates to abandon ego. What do I mean by this? Abandon this idea of me, my way, my opinion, etc., etc. Rather, the mindset should be that how can I serve you, O Lord Woden? Music helps us to think in this sort of more selfless context, where further, devotional music helps us to cultivate positive qualities such as humility, compassion, patience, and other qualities. Because again, the idea is to give to the deity and whatnot, and if one is lucky, they would get a boon in return, which is kind of like a wish, if you will. But ideally, one should worship sincerely for the deity's sake, and not because they want something in return, because that would be calculation. But as far as devotional music, this can be shared with other people, and more the merrier. I mean, if you can get like a chorus of people together singing and praising Thor, for example, yeah, more power to you. I'm sure Thor himself would be quite pleased with that. As well as, not only do you strengthen connection with the deity in question, but also a connection with the devotees around you as well. So, yeah. And as an aside, people making their own devotional songs upon that, there's a lot of freedom within that. It's just the main intent is to give love to a deity. So again, you'd want it to sound nice, to sound pleasing. Like another way to look at it would be like a love song. So instead of to a person, it'd be towards a human. It would be towards something higher than a human, a deity, right? So if one wants to know, okay, where can I find examples of this? One can look towards devotional bhajans or kirtans, like music from India, devotional dharmic music, if you will. Or as far as other sources, one could look to historical sources from pre-Christian Europe, such as prayers, where you do find this. You do find rhetoric of like, the evocation of the name of the deity, epithets and descriptions, etc., etc. So in conclusion, devotional music helps to demonstrate the context between devotee, the worshiper, and deity to a newcomer. Devotional music helps to maintain a loving relationship between the devotee and the deity, and the deity being a metaphysical personality. Devotional music helps to abandon ego and cultivate good qualities such as patience, humility, etc., etc. And finally, devotional music can take many forms with the main intent to please the deity in question. Thank you.
Excellent. Oh, thanks very much, Kevin. That was yeah, it was really nice to hear your singing. I think that was very good. What's your opinion of a lot of neo-folk music, particularly this sort of genre? I'm not sure what the sort of Viking metal, or I don't know. I mean, bands like Vardruna, for instance,
Yes. Yeah.
and Selvik, and yeah, what do you think about? How do you find this music? Because often, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that, because I have talked about it with other people about this. Because right now, again, the revival of devotion to the gods, if you will, is still in its infancy. So a lot of people are kind of, well, we don't know how to do it. So we think people are making guesses. And so the problem is, you get a lot of people thinking, okay, well, how can we imitate a specific time in the past? And the thing is, with music of Wardruna and bands like Heilung, for example, like it's very dark. It's very like kind of, it's not, I don't know, like it's kind of hard to extract and understand, okay, what is the context and whatnot. But like for example, with Heilung, they don't call their concerts like concerts. They say, oh, they call it like a ritual and whatnot. But it's still, I mean, people can do what they want, but I mean, it's just, uh, like ideally you'd want music to be uplifting and not like be, really dark sounding and like kind of bring you down or whatnot or what have you. Like the idea is for one to give themselves to the deity, and the problem is you get a lot of people that think, okay, well, a lot of people in the West, they're trying to get away from Christianity or Abrahamism in general, and they think, okay, well, whatever is pagan must be the opposite, right? So instead of happy, jolly Christian music, well, what must be pagan must be dark and the opposite, when that's not really the case, because historically speaking, people in the past enjoyed beauty. I mean, listen to any medieval music from the past, it's very beautiful sounding and whatnot, or Christian hymns, if you will. The only real difference, if you will, is really the names, but I guess the style of it, the expression, the cultural expression would be the same.
So, I mean,
I hope that answers your question.
You don't really feel, you don't respond very, very much to that particular genre, which is a very, very popular genre, and there are lots of bands like that. Is that right? It's not something you feel really relates to your spirituality. Is that correct? Yeah.
Well, I, of course, like I said before, there are many ways to, musically to devote themselves to the divine and whatnot. But as far as, the main intent being that like this music in question is not made for me, rather made for the deity in question. So, I mean, of course, it's just, I don't know. Some people, they think, when it comes to like bands like Heilung and whatnot, oh, how can we be edgy and whatnot and not, and whatnot. So I hope, I don't know. It's just, I'm not really a fan of because of these sorts of bands, because the thing is, again, they have that reconstructionist mindset, like how can we imitate a specific period and when people are focused so much on trying to imitate a specific time period, they forget the whole point of being a devotee to a particular deity. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, does if anyone has any questions, please jump in.
Yes, Dave.
Oh yeah, hello, Andre. Yeah. Please go ahead.
I am in Antwerp, so Flemish, but I've made my study in French. And when I heard our friends singing, it remembered me something in French, the chant de fidélité. It means singing, honoring fidelity. And it is fully in the direction we refer, is des hommes à l'âme vile portant la crosse et la croix, ont imposé dans nos villes le reniement de la loi. Mais pour que toujours sur terre reste un point de ralliement, d'âge en âge sont fidèles les hommes de notre sang. So, and I know it exists also in German, under the name of Treuenlied, meaning song for fidelity.
Oh, it's nice. Yeah, thank you for that, Andre. Yeah, well, I'm not going to be singing anyways. So no worries. No one should be worried on that account.
Yeah, we're looking to open up our stuff and like open up our powerlifting or boxing we do on Saturday with the song and then end it with the song. But it's so hard to find good music that, yeah, it's something that's in the works, but we haven't really done anything with it.
Singing in group creates energy. I remember the shanty songs on the boats.
I think so, yeah. But what's hard is that we have it's kind of like a British tradition of just having a stiff upper lip. You know what I mean? So we don't sing or do anything normally. And I think in the West, especially in the far West, it's like people listen to music on the radio. You don't really go to go to the pub and then sing songs. You know what I mean? You just go and listen to music, and somebody else either plays it live or they play it over the radio. I think it's like it's a cultural thing that we've kind of missed out on.
I mean, but when you, Mikhail, yeah, please go ahead. You got your hand up.
So I really liked Cefin's talk. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Kevin, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Kevin's talk. And we sort of got into the question of beauty, right? What is beauty? And I think, I hope all of us can agree that there is something divine in beauty itself, right?
Yes.
What I sort of noticed in Kevin's approach is that I would say it's healthy, and I don't want this to sound in any demeaning way, but I feel like that his approach is approach of, I would say, of the Vaishya class. If you have in the laws of Manu, that's how I at least felt when he was singing. It was sort of very folkish, very countryside-like feeling of this like positivity in this like more like an artist sense. Like, you know, I took care of my wealth, my ranch, things like that, my hamlet, and now I'm happy. I all the because in the laws of Manu, it is said that the role or the dharma of the Vaishya is to produce wealth for everyone. And music and artisanship is also a sort of wealth. But to get back to the idea of beauty, I understand why he likes the approach of the more cheerful music, but still I have an objection to that because we know historically, for example, that I would talk about two plays as a piece of art. First is, of course, Hamlet, and Hamlet is a very dark play, but I think it is very beautiful nonetheless. And majorly it was most likely inspired from Greek tragedy. And if you look at the Greek tragedy, it's called Bacchae from Euripides. It was historically, we know, that this play won a tournament, a competition in ancient Greece and it was the best play. It was considered the best play. And this play is basically the worship of Dionysus. It's about Dionysus. And all of this place is about worship of Dionysus. And it is a very brutal and tragic play, but I think it's beautiful nonetheless.
So yeah, I mean, the point you're making, Mikhail, is yeah, there are many forms, many places where one can see beauty. I mean, there can be the beauty of the violent thunderstorm, really, which that's an interesting point you made about Vaishna, a Vaishna kind of like song coming. Yeah, that's interesting. What do you say, Kevin?
Well, you know, because the thing is, like I said before, I can understand, you know, within, you know, the context of Greek tragedy and whatnot, and how that's sort of the tradition there and whatnot. But even within that, you know, like if the main intent behind it is that, okay, we're doing this act not for ourselves, but for something beyond ourselves, and you know, there'll be, you know, that's the main thing. But to go even further, and plus the thing is, you know, with that tune in particular, I like a lot of the way I work is that I take a tune that I like and then put my own words to it, you know, to please the deity in question. All right. And, like I said before, you know, if you like someone, you want to, you know, give them something nice and whatnot. But I mean, I guess one could use darkness in a way. But the thing is, with like music like Wardruna, Heilung and whatnot, they're not very, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're not very direct in like addressing the gods directly, that, you know, speaking them directly, like how we see in bhajans and kirtans and whatnot, and, you know, from India, where it's very direct. It's that communication between directly from devotee and deity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I did not want to say it in any like demeaning way. I truly think that your approach is healthy. I'm not saying it's like bad or anything. I think you need to find your approach, and I think you are doing it very well, right? I'm just saying that there's more aspects to it, but approach is good, and I like it.
Yeah.
And I find it to be, in my view, it is like very originally Vaishya. That's how I see it, at least.
Okay.
So it's original, it's good, right? But it's very Vaishya. That's how I feel it is. But that's good. It's not meant, I would not mean it in like, I did not want to at least sound it like in any demeaning way. Okay?
Of course. Yeah, you know, like you made a good point about how like that again, the tragedy, because thing is no two cultures are the same, right? And in the Greek tradition, you know, a form of devotion would be through a tragic play, and with all the you know, I guess the play director or all the actors and actresses, you know, they're all we're all assuming that they're devotees of Dionysus, and within that, you know, they're all acting in accordance all together for Dionysus. Yeah. So the main intent, yeah, like the ongoing theme between what I'm doing and that dark tragic play is that, again, it's not to us, but rather to Dionysus or to the deity in question, which, you know, like I said before, I mean, as far as devotional music and whatnot, you know, it can take many forms. I guess I tend to like more the uplifting stuff, since that's the stuff that kind of I tend to listen to more often and whatnot. So I guess in that context, you know, it's really a matter of taste, but at the same time, though, it's just it's sort of hard to make that distinction now, because the thing is, a lot of music like Wardruna and Heilung, you know, bands like that, they're trying to imitate a specific time, and they're trying and instead of, you know, focusing on the deity itself and whatnot, because the problem is too, a lot of these people who get into this stuff, they always talk of the deities as like something from the past instead of being here already. You know, so it's like, oh, Odin was oh, Thor was, not Thor is, you know. So yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think you've emphasized something which is very important in different musics. It's the way in which the performer is relating to their concept of the deity. As you're doing it, you're doing it in a very direct way, as you say, as you know, as a son to a father, or you know, a brother to a brother, a son to a mother. This I don't think that relationship is present in most of the music in the Viking genre. It's more about creating a certain kind of feeling. Really, there doesn't seem to be that human relation, which is it's more like commenting upon something without being a participator in it.
They're attractive songs. They're entertaining, but they're not devotional. And I don't think that was the intention. They're not designed to be devotional. They're talking about stuff. They're not devotional. They're not making connections between people and deities.
Yeah, I mean, and that maybe is So devotional music is you know, a definite genre that you know is you know.
You're a genre.
It's within many other genres, but probably the greatest and most sort of famous work whereby the Germanic gods are named is Wagner's Ring, of course, which is a curious work in you know in its religious status. I mean, his religious position was quite abstract. It was, you know, very much influenced by Schopenhauer and ideas that was about an impersonal sense, and the deities could just as easily be replaced with kings and queens, really. I don't know. At the same time, the whole work is a way towards something, and in the same way that in some of the mythological stories, the gods with a small g are characters that lead us to the gods with a large G, in a sense. The two things are not quite the same. And so yeah, Kevin, yeah. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, what you're touching upon is like what happens in India today, where you have what is called a devotional film, and it's something similar to what you're saying, but rather the story where it'd be like about devotees, and they would get into like some circumstance and whatnot, and they turn to the goddess or deity, and the deity helps them and whatnot. We don't sort of have that in the West, because the problem is a lot of people are very secularized. They because of New Ageism, modernity, people have this idea that, oh, the gods are just energies, metaphors, or just explanations of nature.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, indeed. What? Yeah, Michael. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, that you just reminded me that I really like the approach that you said, is that the gods are metaphysical personalities. I really like that, what you said, because I did not really agree with the way you got the method you got to the conclusion, but I agree with the conclusion. And it seems that because I'm reading a little bit more into Evola recently, and he talks about the fact that I'm starting to get more and more, let's say, distanced from the Jungian approach to paganism and all these things, because I am starting to identify myself more with the notion, with Evola's notion of revolt against the modern world, right? So feeling I'm starting to reject this approach. So, but another thing I would like to say is that your theological approach, let's say, it really reminds me of the approach of, that's Christian, but nonetheless, of Soren Kierkegaard. I don't know if you know him. I read his book, Sickness and Death, I think it's called. And his approach is also very devotional to God, and that he says that your personal relationship with God is what is most important. And he also talks a lot, especially in this book, he talks about authenticity. And in this book, he talks about that people can experience two types of despair. That's why it's called sickness unto death. And that is when a person desperately wants to be himself or desperately does not want to be himself. So desperately wants to be authentic or desperately does not want to be authentic. So I find that your approach is very similar to Kierkegaard.
That's an interesting point. No, that's good. Kevin, what's your view? I mean, how do you? It's difficult to think of many works in the canon of Western classical music that one could call devotional. There's plenty of religious works, most of them being mass sittings. But yeah, it's hard to think of that. I've got a handsome box set of sacred music. This is all a 50 CD collection of Western pieces, and ranging from very early chants right up to the 20th century. But the number of pieces that one could perhaps call devotional, I don't know. That's an interesting question, really. I mean, music can be religious, but it's not necessarily devotional, perhaps.
Yeah, you can have music. Well, the real distinction is the intent behind the music. So if I have an instrumental, for example, and I, as the composer, have in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm making, what's my reason behind making this? Am I making this for myself? Am I making this to a specific audience, or am I making it to God or to a specific deity? So devotional music would be in the realm of well, in the context of religious music, will be dedicated to something beyond humans, right? Just dedicated towards God or whatnot, dedicated towards a specific demigod, if you will. Yeah, we see that a lot in early, well, I mean, in like classical music or whatnot, and like how they glorify God and like Jesus and all that. I mean, if you were to replace those names with, I don't know, Odin or Thor, it'd be more or less like the same thing. But of course, well, in the context that it's still devotion, right? I mean, if you look at, for example, Austria and whatnot, and like there are many shrines like, or throughout Europe, you would like see shrines of like towards saints and whatnot. 1,000 years ago, before Christianity, those shrines would have been to particular deities and whatnot. So the expression of it would be more or less the same. The only real difference are the images and the names themselves. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense.
Are you saying that music in the classical, the canon, therefore can be regarded as devotional music? Then, I'm just thinking of works that Bruckner wrote, and I think several of his pieces are explicitly dedicated to God. So that's one of his symphonies as well. It clearly was some sort of an offering that he was making, with the object of his worship.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, yeah, that would be considered devotional music because one can look at the lyrical content and like find out like if you have like rhetoric of like of evocation of the name, praising of that person in question or that personality in question, then yeah, it's that would fall in the realm of devotional. Yeah.
I suppose some people have such an exalted idea of divinity that their relationship is different from perhaps a person that sees it in more of a sort of more human terms, really. Some people that they do have a very I think it's probably true with Bruckner. I mean, his symphonies are, cathedrals in sound. I mean, they really are very sort of grand. I suppose, yeah, it's a different sort of sense of, it's a different kind of relationship, really. AJ, do you what sort of music do you? I mean, is there any music that you find that expresses your faith?
I haven't thought about that, but I would agree with Kevin that a lot of these things, regardless of what is being said and what is the religious content and who is being worshipped, are actually quite similar. So even though I'm not a Christian, I can listen to Bach, for example, which was devotional music, and it sounds uplifting, if you understand what I'm talking about, because it's not really in a literal language, it is in a figurative, metaphorical language, of your relation to the divine. So I appreciate music from all over and from all traditions because it all has this common human element. As you know, I'm an evolutionary psychologist, and I see a common human nature underlying all of this. And our relationship to the divine is probably something fairly universal, regardless of content.
Yes.
I don't know if that answers your question, but that was a question.
Yeah.
Can I make one comment, though? Okay. I think there are some differences among some of these religions and your relationships to the gods. Okay. And I'm telling you, I was raised Catholic, although I didn't stay that way for very long. But one thing that I didn't like about Christianity and some similar religions is, if you'll pardon my vulgarity, kissing ass all the time. Like, why is God so insecure that you have to constantly be sucking up? I didn't like that. And one thing that I found refreshing about the Norse gods is they didn't have some kind of self-esteem problem, you know? They demanded loyalty, they demanded, you know, a good and noble behavior. It didn't seem to me that you had to suck up to them. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that, you can clarify, but I think that there's a difference in tone. Am I wrong about this?
May I?
Yeah, of course, Kevin.
Yeah, you really nailed something. Yeah, because with Christianity, you know, it has its origins in Abrahamism or Abrahamism, if you will, and the notion of God and not understanding is a very angry, jealous God and whatnot. So yeah, so with your vulgarity is well put, because whereas, you know, with the Norse gods or the Germanic gods, if you will, like, they don't need us to surrender to them, you know, but they allow us to surrender to them, you know, and we surrender, you know, with our own free will, because we want to, rather than in the mode of submission like you have from Abrahamic religions.
Yes. Edith, are you what any music that you find particularly significant that takes you into a relationship with something beyond?
Well, I would say Fauré's Cantique de Jean Racine is the most, but I like that because it almost sounds a little bit pagan. It's got the devil's chord in it, I think, and it's I wanted to ask Kevin, do we know what pre-Christian music, what it sounded like what scale were they using? Was it like only 5 notes like the Hindu music, or did it have 8 notes, or did they have major and minor? And do we have any idea did it sound like the song you sang mostly, or have we any evidence, because they didn't write it down with notes, you know, so how do we know what it sounded like?
Question.
Well, to attempt to answer that,
well, you don't have to.
We can kind of speculate from the what I can say is that we can speculate from the instruments of the time, of pre-Christian Europe, and as far as like melody construction, I mean, it's really guesswork and whatnot, but it's like who knows what scales or this or that, but like I was saying before, I mean, if someone were to get too wrapped up in trying to imitate a specific time, you know, they sort of miss the point in a way, where, like, you know, rather I should have said this earlier, but rather ideally I would say one should focus on not so much on the past, but rather focus on that which is eternal. So when one focuses on the eternal, they have the past, present, and future. So with that said, rather not try to imitate a specific time, but rather just, you know, use or what we can use now and try to use that as a motive, as a means of devotion and whatnot. But as far as, like, I don't know very like specifics here and there back then, but I mean, you know, if you want an idea, you can, I mean, like the oldest English pieces are like from the time of Middle English, but yeah, if you listen to early medieval music, that should give you a clue. Like I said before, like the only real difference, if you will, is really just the names. You know, if you were to replace the names instead of God, instead of Jesus, like change the Thor, it'd be more or less the same thing. You know,
yeah.
So.
Of course. I'll just come to you in a sec, Mikhail. We should be having a speaker in the future who is an expert on Greek music, and I think there are genuine sources there that allow for the reconstruction of some Greek works. And I was listening to those actually the other day, and they have a quality that's quite different from most of the music that we're familiar with. It's like eating apples that just taste quite different. So that is interesting. It is interesting. And it would be good to see some modern music directed towards the gods that perhaps drew on different scales or investigated those different sort of tonalities. Mikhail, sorry, yes, you wanted to.
Yeah, so you sort of started what I wanted to say, because we know that Pythagoras studied music, and he was like the first to find out how the scales work, how notes work, right?
Yes.
And so there's definitely that place where we can look. And also, I think we can also look, if we want to find sort of like the origins of European music, let's say we can look at Lithuania. We had a Romuva group here recently, and Inia said herself that there's almost 1 million songs.
She said that, didn't she? Yes, she said that.
Left from the Lithuanian folklore. So I think those would be good sources where to look.
Yeah, I really hope she didn't make a mistake, and it is 1 million, because I mean that would be quite amazing. Yeah. Michael, do you want me to ask your question, or are you with your mouth full of some? I know you're eating your dinner. Or shall I ask it for you? You put it in chat. I'm going to assume that you put it in chat.
Go ahead, Stan.
Sorry? Shall I?
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
It wasn't really a question, but all right, go ahead.
No, it was a good point. Michael has said that the only divergence he had was over limiting the relationship of to a deity to that of father to son, mother to daughter, teacher to student. Why not also lover to lover, friend to friend, partner to partner, husband to wife, etc.? Perhaps this wider range is more commensurate with telluric or nature-orientated paganism than its more transcendental Gnostic expression.
Okay.
Do you think any? There was a wise Hindu lady told me that one can have any relationship at all to Bhagwan, to the gods. It could be any kind. You know. How do you find that? Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, I like to, as a Dharmi myself, I like to go by what the scriptures say, and whatnot. But like, it'd be quite, I don't know, to put it politely, unfair to make a deity who's a superior being to us. Reduced to like, the deity is my friend, and whatnot. Rather, this is someone to give our respectful obeisances to, not our pal at the pub, and whatnot. And it's because thing is, when you, I don't know, it's just like it's the whole idea, going back to devotional music, is to cultivate this humility and understanding that yes, a god is better than you, is superior to you, and whatnot, and people acknowledge that. Like if you try to work your mind around saying, well, actually a god is like my best friend, and he's the one that gives me all those boons I like. Well, that's more of an egotistical approach. I mean, the idea is to, like, as I said before, devotional music helps us to abandon ego, abandon this idea of me, my way. Oh yeah, Thor, yeah, he's just one of my lads. No, he's a someone who's vastly superior to all of us.
I totally respect your point of view. I would, however, without being able to quote the adhyaya and verse, refer to the fact that in the Bhagavad Gita, the Krishna says, those who come to me as friends, I'm a friend. Those who come to me as an enemy, I'm an enemy.
Yes. Okay, I see where you're coming from. Yeah. Well, the idea with the conception of God and Sanatana Dharma, that God is our best friend and whatnot, but this is not just any best friend. This is like a best friend that's infinitely superior to us. I mean, well, I guess in that context, you can be friends, but with a friend in a high place, if you will, if that makes sense, and who in a way is like a father and like a mother. And that's why you have a lot of people in India or what have you, when they refer to the god or goddess, it's always in terms of like, oh father, oh mother, etc., etc.
Yeah. It was cute. I think the other night I went to some event and it was talking about different sects in Vaishnavism. I think I mentioned it to you, and one of the sects only worships Krishna as a baby, which is interesting. So it illustrates this kind of, range of relations.
Yeah, to touch on that, I mean, everyone has their own connection to, well, specifically Krishna, and one can see him as like the baby, the one who goes around running and eating butter, to the one who's the charioteer of Arjuna and whatnot. And even says the Bhagavad Gita, I'll appear in the form that you wish to see me in. Because it's with the understanding that, well, God can do anything, right? So even to appear as the to be in the image or that the devotee likes best and whatnot. So I hope that makes sense.
It's a big subject. That Mick, I mean, your musical taste is very wide ranging, extraordinarily so. What's your? Because I mean, you like quite a lot of things that and so do I. That perhaps might be considered quite dark. I don't know.
I don't know what to say really. No, I put me on the spot. Were you posing that as a question, or?
Yes, I mean, there are some kind of. I suppose we're going back to the earlier theme, really. But I mean, I suppose I'd just like to ask all the people that have come if they've got anything that they'd like to sort of say about the topic, really.
No, I mean, it's been very interesting, but it's.
I mean, you're someone that does enjoy music. You go to
Oh, absolutely, yes, yeah.
And I mean, when you're going to some of the, I don't know, Ukrainian kind of sort of dark
metal concerts,
whatever. Is it some kind of, I don't know, one doesn't want to use this word too cheaply, but it's quite a spiritual experience of some meaning, would you say?
Well, I think in terms of that particular music, possibly, because I think there's a whole philosophy around it that transcends the music.
Yeah. And
a lot of the music is just, I mean, a lot of people might listen to it, think it's just all the same, but it's actually, it's there to communicate a type of atmosphere, I think, to put one in touch with some kind of luminousness, as opposed to just making a musical statement. I think there are a lot of things around it, and it's a milieu where you meet like-minded people, which is, it's just very interesting. It's a communal event, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, I'd very, very rarely sit at home and listen to black metal, for example, because it just doesn't mean anything. I don't think.
Does when you're going to an event. Yeah, it's
absolutely, because you do get the community. It's all about the community that's there. It's a communal thing. It really is.
Yeah.
I would imagine it's quite a poor analogy, but it's a bit like watching Match of the Day on your own on your portable black and white TV, and actually being there at a football match. Because when you're in the crowd, you're picking up on the vibe of the crowd, and it's like I said, I'm just repeating myself here, but it is more of a communal thing. And it's interesting how subcultures form around types of music and things like that. And then again, it's almost like a kind of impetus for a neo-tribalism in a lot of ways, So I think there's music and kind of meta music.
Yeah, it is very important, one's relationship with the performer. I know with a lot of folk it's important to actually have a be there with the person, or it's like an interaction, a normal interaction with a human. But it's not something that one might, just speaking personally, that I would perhaps listen to out of the context of the person being there somehow. It kind of comes out of an engagement with someone, really.
Absolutely, but it's a heightened engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the thing. You know, it's I would say, you know, it almost verges on the transcendental sometimes at certain points. And it's all good.
Yeah, no, thanks. No, that's a good point. That's a good point. Kevin, do you like? I mean, are you fond of? I mean, what's been your listening kind of history? I think Michael's got to go. Oh, okay, Michael. Thanks for coming. I'm going to put your question to Kevin in a minute that you put in chat. But no, thanks for coming. Yeah, what's been your listening history? I mean, did you grow up with sort of pop music, or you know, what sort of stuff were you listening to?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, well, growing up, oh, it turns out another person has to go.
Thanks, Joe. He's gone. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Anyway, yeah. Well, growing up, I was into, I guess, into pop music in the context that there was a time when I was young. I was into like pop punk.
The time when you were young. Sorry, I think you're still in that category.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of. Anyway, but I was into like punk pop. I was like into bands like Sum 41, Blink-182, and there was a time where I got into hip hop music and whatnot. And so, but then I got into like not like screaming music, like it's like death metal and whatnot. So I got into really hard stuff, and then out of the blue, that was also a time when I used to make hip hop instrumentals, but then I had some composer block, and then I had to do something completely different. So I got into like Gregorian chant and whatnot, and I discovered, you know, this whole array of like medieval music and whatnot. And but as far as like growing up, I also grew up with a lot of like Beethoven, Vivaldi, you know, and whatnot as well. But as it was mainly that. But then as I got older, I began to like folk music a lot, and then as far as what influenced my work, you know, making devotional songs, like ever since I got into, you know, Sanatana Dharmi and like listening to bhajans and whatnot, and I'm just looking at the lyrics of this stuff, like, whoa, this is like what if Europe had never been Christianized? You know, it would be something like this. Even at a mass level, if you will, or at a folk level, if you will, and like, whoa, you know, and I'm just thinking, why hasn't this context been for like European revival paganism and whatnot? And I thought, okay, why not kind of draw a page from there, and incorporate that into my music in Old English and whatnot. So
no, absolutely, and it's great that you're doing that.
Do you think instead that do you ever heard of the band like Eye of Odin? You ever heard of those guys? It was like I think Eye of Odin came out in, it had to be the 80s or maybe like early 90s. Yeah. They're like an old British band.
I've heard it. No, I've not heard of those.
No. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, they had like some songs that were kind of devotional, but like rock and roll kind of devotional.
I've heard. Okay, I should have a.
Yeah, they're on YouTube if you Google it.
Look for that. Michael, are you still there? Do you want to make your point, or shall I do? Yeah, perhaps I'll do that. Michael says, perhaps this isn't the question but a comment. I'll just read it. The gods, especially the Olympians, beautifully honored one another, even if they did not. I think that's not. It's supposed to be that even if they did not particularly like the other. Humanity is different, but also one of the gods. He can certainly, like the Olympians, or even better, ritualistically honor the immortals, but we are not inherently inferior, perhaps at best individually, but not collectively. I don't know whether you'd like to respond to that. Michael, are you there? No, perhaps he's not. Did that make sense, Kevin?
Well, hang on, I'm trying to so
read
basically, okay, I see.
You could, see it in chat yourself, I think, maybe.
Yeah, I see it. Like, okay, they're not like each other. Humanity's different. Hang on, you scroll up. Hang on. Okay, so humanity is different, but also the gods. He can certainly, like the Olympians, but even we did honor the immortals, but we are not inherently fury. Well, the thing is, learning from Dharma, speaking from a Dharmic perspective, the gods, well, they're superior to human beings because partly because we as human beings, we have a material body. The gods don't, and they have powers vastly superior to us. I mean, like, Surya is the sun. Indra, who's the king of the devas, he's associated with thunder and whatnot, and lightning and all that. What human being can do that, right? And it's I'm just because thing is, to even go back to the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is a Vedic text, and where it's like it even mentions the hierarchy of being, of just to recite a bit of it. It says something like superior to human beings are ghosts because they don't have a material body, but superior to them are a list of other order. I don't want to accidentally give false information, but then later on, superior to the demons or the asuras are the devas, the gods, and superior to the devas are the sons of Brahma, and Brahma being the father, being superior to them, and superior to Brahma is Lord Narayana, who's the highest, right? And so, speaking from a Vedic point of view, I mean, the gods are superior to us, but at the same time, they are also an Atman. They a soul, if you will, and they can die too. They have their own desires and whatnot. It's just, like even a deva can fall down, if you will, due to illusion and whatnot. And we have there's evidence for this in the scriptures, where one story where Indra thought he can overpower Krishna, but Krishna, being an avatar of Lord Vishnu, and taught him a lesson. Hey, you're not the highest, I am, and whatnot. So yeah, I know that was a little long, but I hope that made sense.
Yes. No, thank you. I think if people have left, I think maybe it might be a good time to thank you for your time, Kevin, and for all the contributions from the other people, Mikhail, Mick, Edith, Michael, and Andre. And perhaps you could end with your Anglo-Saxon prayer, which you've written yourself, and I'm sure will speak in a way that we will be very pleased to hear.
Yes. Well, before I recite that, I'd like to say thank you for inviting me. We've been talking about this for a long time, and I'm so pleased to be here with all you guys and whatnot. I mean, it's absolutely a joy, to be actively part of the revival for, taking the gods seriously, whatnot. And so it's just, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Kevin. Well, thank you. It's nice. We're establishing some good friendships around the world. With sort of Tom with his channel and a few other people, and Arcaria G as well, who's been here, so that's good.
Yeah. Okay. So what I have here to recite is a prayer that I made, that I wrote in Old English I'll recite the Old English and then I'll do the Modern English. This is dedicated towards Woden. Here we go. Alle Vader, thuthe ertan helvena, Koning thare tiwa, thein thas hach fran, hava thu urre wordu lobes, slacher thas feundas, bergus of ivela, bergus of dwimmernessa, bergus of unwerda, halwas thu woden, wulder the woden, seeth the woden. O Father, thou who art in heaven, King of the Tiwas, Thane of the Supreme Lord, have thou our words of praise, Slayer of the fiend, secure us of evil, secure us of illusion, secure us of ill fortune. Hail, Woden, glory to thee, Woden, victory to thee, Woden.
Very much, Kevin. Thanks everyone for spending time here. I think Mikhail will you have to come to a meta moot, and then we can talk about your, I mean, you're so full of ideas and energy. So it'll be good to have that directed towards the moon. But yeah, I hope your father gets well with his foot. That sounds kind of quite grim, and it's going to be a long recovery period, I'm sure. You'll probably be in one of these really sort of big, cumbersome metal kind of cage things on his foot. Not just a plaster. So I hope he gets well with that. We have someone. Hello, Andy. I don't know. You've just turned up as we finish, which is rather unfortunate. But anyway, nice to have a new name there. All right. Yeah. Have a good evening, everyone, and possibly see some of you at the next bloat at the end of the month on the last Sunday. Bye everyone. Bye Edith. Bye Mikhail. Bye Michael.
Just cheers, Kevin.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Kevin. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Everybody.
Take care, everyone.